FOG number 81 is Adrian Vowles. Adrian played one Origin match for Queensland, coming off the bench at the MCG in Game 2 of the 1994 series. Born in Cunnamulla, Adrian made his NRL debut for the Gold Coast Seagulls in 1993 before joining the North Queensland Cowboys in 1995. Adrian was named the Gold Coast Seagulls Player of the Year in 93. It's fair to say most of Adrian Vowles' rugby league success came in the English Super League with the Castleford Tigers. Adrian played over 140 games for the club in 2 stints, the highlight being named in the English Super League Dream Team of 1999, the same year he was the recipient of the Man of Steel Award. Well, Adrian Vowles, thanks for your time. What does it mean to you to be a FOG?
It means a hell of a lot. As a kid, I listened to the first game on the radio with Dad. He'd told me about Queensland. I was getting beaten by New South Wales with Queensland players, and so we sat around the kitchen table in 85 Wick Street, Cunnamulla, and listened to that game on the radio. And that was when I said then, after that game, to myself that I'll play Origin one day. Even pipe dream, but that's what I said. And then we'd have to wait a couple of weeks to get the game on video before I actually saw that game. But we listened to it on the radio, and so yeah, to play for Queensland is a massive. A lot of people don't get that chance, and I was the 81st player to do it, and no one can take that away from me.
Well, let's find out how a kid from Cunnamulla ended up being FOG number 81. Tell us what it was like growing up in Cunnamulla.
Well, I grew up on a sheep and cattle property, 23,000 acre sheep and cattle property. So I had the most amazing childhood. Tough, it was drought most of that time, and to see how hard Dad and Pa and Nan and Mum worked, and Mum would live in town during the week and work with my older sisters when they were at school, and then I sort of stayed at the property until I went to school. Then I moved into town, and you think back and go, well, it must have been hard for Mum being a single mum, not a single mum, but during the week a single mum, and Dad out in the property. But it was such a good upbringing and taught me all about hard work, and you've got to, if you want anything in life, you've got to work hard. But living in Cunnamulla as a kid, I was a swimming club. I didn't play footy till I was nearly 9. I don't know. Dad wanted me to, and then I was like, because he was a good footballer, and I just wanted to make sure I was all right at it. And then I finally said, right, I want to play. And then my first game, I remember I was fast, made a break, came to the fullback, and I just hurdled him. Jumped over him and scored a try, and then very proud of myself. But I got in trouble with Dad after the game, said, don't ever hurdle anyone, you break your neck. And it was like, oh. But that was when I sort of fell in love with it. And from then on, and I just loved sport. I loved cricket, I loved footy, swam, did every sport you could as a kid. But growing up as a kid, I did boxing under Billy Johnson's old man because I was getting bullied at school a bit. So my dad sent me to learn how to hold my hands up a bit, so I didn't have to put up with the bully anymore, and it actually worked. He didn't have any troubles after that, but that was probably a good learning lesson as well. But then we moved to Charleville when I was 11, which was just another amazing place to grow up in.
So when did it start becoming serious for you in terms of your ability and being noticed, I suppose?
Under 12s, I made my first rep side, which was the Southwest Queensland rep side. So that's when I went, oh yeah, I'm not too bad at this. And then as I went into high school and played club footy for Whites originally, and then Railways. But it was probably, I made a Darling Downs in 1988. I was in grade 12. I made a Darling Downs side as a 5'8", and that's kids from all the way from Cunnamulla to Toowoomba, and I made that side. Which sort of said to myself, I've got a little bit of ability if a country kid can make that side. But then I also started playing A grade as a 16-year-old that year as well in Charleville, and playing against men, and handled it all right. So I sort of thought, I'm going okay at this. But I went to a Queensland Rugby League camp. They used to have these Queensland Rugby League camps at Mount Cravat, and one of the coaches there was a bloke called Brian Winnie, who's very well known in Redcliffe. He said to me at that camp, this was in January, he said, "You ever thought about moving away for footy?" I went, "Oh no." And he said, "No, you should try and move away and have a crack." And he said, "I think you've got." So he was the first person who put it in my head to leave Charleville to move away and play footy, and which I duly did at the end of grade 12 that year.
Easier said than done, because you're moving from Cunnamulla to Charleville. We're not talking about massive populations
No.
there. So you ended up heading south and found yourself at Tweed Heads.
Yeah, well, you talk about moving from Cunnamulla to Charleville. I hated that move to go from that to that. And then, ironically, the bloke I sat next to when I first moved to Charleville in school was a bloke called Grant Bignell, who's still my best mate to this day. So that was a hard enough move. So I finished grade 12. I hopped on a Greyhound bus a week later with a suitcase to go and live with my sister and her husband and to do an apprenticeship. And yeah, that was tough because I didn't have a car, and then I looked like I was going to play for Southport Tigers, and then Mum knew Vince Hargie, who ran Tweed Seagulls, and rang him and said, could I come there? And I ended up playing under 19s there. Tommy Searle, the late Tommy Searle, was the coach, and the father of Michael Searle, and he saw something in me and made me captain that year, which gave me so much confidence, because all of a sudden I thought, oh, he must think I've got something. And then, yeah, played. I never got any offers. I never played for any Queensland sides as a kid, and I had a really good year with Tweed Seagulls, and then I got invited to trial with the Gold Coast Seagulls, which is a couple of sliding doors moments in that.
How close were you to A, not going on that Greyhound bus, or B, getting back on another Greyhound bus to go back home?
Well, so that was, I got the Greyhound bus to go live in the Gold Coast. I also got the Greyhound bus back for Christmas. After I came back for Christmas, I didn't want to go back on the Greyhound bus because I wanted my mates, my family, like everyone I knew. And Mum persuaded me to go. She said, "You'll regret it if you don't go, you've got a job." And so I did not want to go back. And sort of that, for the first 12 months, I think every time I come home, I didn't want to go back. And you gradually get over it, but it's always hard to leave, particularly a town that you're talking 3,000 people, where you can walk across the road and not get hit by a car for about 10 minutes. So it's like really good lifestyle, relaxed. No one takes themselves too seriously. To move to the Gold Coast, which is fast, but it was tough. It was tough, really tough.
So when you're trialling for the Seagulls, what was that like? What were your thoughts at that stage? How long did you think you'd last there?
Well, I wasn't sure, but I got offered to trial. So this is quite a good story. And so that was that. In 1990, the Gold Coast Seagulls were going to put together an under-21 squad, because in 1991 they were going to get an under-21s team in the comp. So we got a squad together and started playing some games, and I kept starting games off the bench. The coach, I was playing 5'8", could never start, and then one day we played Steve Rogers' Group 18 rep side. He was the coach of this side. Now, Steve Rogers was one of my idols as a kid as well. And so we'd warmed up, he'd come over to our coach and said, "Oh, our 5'8" hasn't turned up, can you lend me a 5'8"? So my coach has gone, "Yeah, take him," pointed to me, and I've gone, "Oh, how good's this? Steve Rogers, I'm going to play for him." I scored 2 tries and set 3 tries up against my team, and because of that game, I then got a trial with the Gold Coast Seagulls in reserve grade against the Brisbane Broncos the next week, which I played in, which I had a good game, and I got a contract. So that's how I wasn't for that game, wasn't for Steve Rogers needing a 5'8" and then me getting picked, I don't think I would have got a contract. And then I got a $2.5 grand contract and a whole heap of training gear, which I was more thankful for the training gear than the money. And so that was such a sliding doors moment.
And then 93, you make your first grade debut.
93, make my first grade debut. And again, a bit of a sliding doors moment. At the end of 92, I'd played 3 years of grade footy. I'd sat on the bench for NRL nearly 20 times, which you did back in the day, and never got a start. So I'd sit there, would get a start. Played against Great Britain in 92. And then at the start of the 93 pre-season, a dietitian came to the club called Julie Albrecht, and I was sitting front row. Normally I'd be out the back, but I was at the front row. And she picked me out and asked me what I ate in a day. And I was a cabinet maker. I was working 10-hour days, training 3 nights a week, getting flogged. And basically I was eating about half of what I should have been eating to put weight on. And so I started seeing her. And then in that pre-season, I put 6 kilograms of pure muscle on by eating properly and trained hard and got to play first grade the next year. But I owe Julie Albrecht, because I think if I hadn't been sitting in the front row and she hadn't picked me out and then I started eating properly, I would maybe not played first grade.
Well, what was it like playing for the Gold Coast in those days? Because there were ups and downs, and Wally Lewis was your coach and an idol growing up, I suppose. So what was it all like? It
was amazing. So my first game was a Tui's Challenge, which they played back in that day, and I marked Jared McCracken, who was a massive centre. And I had a really good game, and that sort of got me a start as the season went. But having Wally as coach, I just idolised the bloke, and I never wanted to let him down. We didn't have a good year, but for me, I just wanted to have a good year as well, play a good year. And we had a lot of good young fellas the year before in 20s. There was myself, Jamie Goddard, Kev Campion, Sats, Jeremy Slosh, that all end up going on to play Origin, and then there was 13 of our 2021 side that year went on to play NRL. So if we'd have kept that nucleus of players together, I think the Gold Coast could have grown. But for me, we won one game, I think in '93. But for me to play under Wally, but to also to know that I can handle first grade it was just massive. And as a kid, you dream of playing NRL, and I got to do it, and it was just awesome.
Well, how would you like to be the owner of one of these? A FOGS authentic game ball signed by Wally Lewis and the 2023 Wally Lewis medalist Reuben Cotter. Now, all you have to do is subscribe, like, and drop a comment below. And each week, gentlemen, we'll be giving away one of these footballs to one of the viewers of the FOGS Queenslander podcast. Well done.
Well, it's good to be able to hand them on to the general public who like it, as long as we don't get blamed for breaking one of Mum's windows when they're kicking it around the backyard or tossing it around.
But this will be framed in a nice
Reuben Cotter's name. Wow.
Do you know how to subscribe and like and do all that, Gilly? No?
Oh. We can help you, mate. We can help you.
Help me out, fellas.
The two daughters can help you out.
So we have one of these to give away each week until stocks run out, until Wally gets sick and tired of signing them and Reuben Cotter disappears. But just subscribe to our channel, FOGS Queenslander Podcast. Write a comment below and click that like button. Everyone goes into the draw, and we've got one of these to give away each week. Well, a few years before, you're in Charleville. Now you're playing under Wally Lewis at the Gold Coast. You win the Player of the Year for 1993, and then 1994, you find yourself getting the call-up to play for Queensland. How did that come about?
Well, that was Steve Renouf had an injury cloud, but Don Ferner had told me that he was the CEO at the time. He told me the day before, he said, you might be a chance. I went, didn't want to get my hopes up, and then I got a phone call from Ross Livermore Saturday morning for about 7:30, I think it was, and Adrian, Ross here, you're on standby for Steve. He's doing a fitness test, I'll ring you back. And I'm just please God, please let him fail this fitness test. And
because we should explain, in those days, there was no squads picked, like there was no 18th man, and there was no reserves that could potentially come in. It was the team, and that was it. So you weren't named to play in Game 2 in '94.
No, I'd had a really good game the week before against Newcastle, got man of the match, and it was a TV game. I don't know if that helped, but and then Ross rang me back and said, mate, you're in. You need to come to the Travel Lodge in Brisbane. And so I've just made this amazing phone call to Mum and Dad to tell them, gives me goosebumps, to tell them that I've made this side. And because you've got to understand, in the country, you've got to make so many sacrifices. Your mum and dad make so many sacrifices in how far you travel, the kilometres you go, like just what they did for me and helped me and kept, pushing me along. And then I could ring them up and say, I'm going to play for Queensland. Like, that is such a reward for them, let alone for myself. But that was one of the best phone calls I've ever got to make, to ring mum and dad to say, oh, mate, I've made this Origin side. It was just, amazing.
Yeah, but then you had to get safely to Brisbane. How was getting to Brisbane safely with that going through your head and everything? Do you remember much about it?
I remember like yesterday, because I went over to the shops. I thought, I need a new pair of joggers. I was on no money at all, mind you, playing for Seagulls, and so I used a bit of money to go and buy a pair of joggers, and got him. I had a 3-cylinder Daihatsu Charade. I had a dodgy clutch that I didn't have the money to replace it with, and then drove to Brisbane. And then Paul Galia, who I was playing with at the Seagulls, his mum and dad come and picked it up, so keep it at their house. And I reckon I would have broke the speed limit getting there. That little Charade was flying on the way to Brisbane, but then when I got to the hotel, I got so nervous, because you walk in, Mal, Wally, Choppy, the 3 legends of the first game, and then all these players, Alfie, Trevor Gummis, the Kevy, Gary Larson, Billy Moore, Mick Hancock, all these. It was just crazy, and just to think that it took me a little while to go, do I belong here?
When you say a little while, how long?
A couple of days, I reckon. It was like, once we started training, maybe then, but I got my gear and tried that on in front of the mirror, as you do, and that was pretty cool. And everyone was really, really good. And probably Mick Hancock was one of the blokes that sort of, once he knew I was a country boy, and we got on really well. Julian O'Neill, he was really good, and we sort of knocked around together back then and during the week. And I remember in Melbourne, he was sponsored by Puma, and we've gone to a Puma photo shoot, and with Shane Warne. Shane Warne was at the photo shoot, so that was pretty cool, I remember. So, but it was just amazing. And Wally was good, because I'd obviously played under him, and Choppy as well. He'd played at Seagulls as well.
You mentioned Melbourne, because that's where your match was, at the MCG of all places. So you're in, as Scotty Sattler refers to it, as the Arthur Beetson Club, as a one-game Origin player, and that one game happens to be at the Melbourne Cricket Ground, which not too many players get the opportunity to play there. So what was the build-up like playing in Melbourne for your game?
Yeah, well, same thing. I'd never been to Melbourne. That was the first. And just when we got to train there the day before, like I needed to get another pair of boots, because the boots I had were slippy on that. So I didn't have a boot sponsor or nothing, and I think Tosser maybe ended up buying me another pair of boots. And to go out there, it's empty obviously, but it was just crazy, because you'd watched so many, cricket and AFL grand finals as a kid, and then to be out there, and then when you're out there and the day before, you're imagining what it'll be like, because no one knew really how many people were going to turn up the next night. So that was, but it was amazing. It was amazing being in Melbourne, because I'd never been there, let alone at the MCG, and let alone playing for Queensland.
What was game day like? What are your memories of game day?
Oh, it's just, I roomed with Danny Moore, who was like, they brought him along as well, like as an 18th man. We got on pretty well, and sort of similar timelines in our career as well. Really good fellow, and so that was good. We got on really well, and so pretty relaxed that day, but nervous. And then, to drive into that stadium in the bus, and it was just, and then before the game, Alfie was vomiting, and I'm going, holy shit, is it that bad that Alfie's vomiting? So then that made me more nervous, and then someone said, no, don't worry, he vomits all the time. So that sort of put me at ease, but not really. But yeah, just I think to look around and see, Mal there. Yeah, Mal's very, very cool, calm and collective, and mind you, then Choppy's giving one of his speeches as well. So it's like, it's hard to calm down when after you hear Chop talk.
And then walking out running out with the team, national anthems and all that sort of stuff, is that when the nerve levels or the excitement levels reached an all-time high?
Well, it was a bit funny because a streaker ran out as we got out there and was running on the field and I think she was trying to drum up a bit of business. I think she might have had something written on her chest or something, but so that made it a little bit funny. But yeah, well, when you saw how many people were there, obviously I didn't know how many were there at the time, but it was 87,000. It was just crazy, and you just go, oh my God. And then that's when I think you realise just how special that stadium is when you see that many people.
Sitting on the bench, was that a good thing, or were you just cracking to get out there to try and let something rip?
Oh, I just wanted to get out there and just try and whack someone on. And I had to wait a while to the back end of the game. But when I got that call, when they said you're on, that so many things go through your head, and even though it's a split second, but you basically go from your timeline all the way through to that current moment, from playing Cunnamulla and Charleville to mum and dad to your friends, and they're all watching and how proud they're all at the pub in Charleville, and then just to cross that white line to know you're an Origin player, that was pretty special.
Did it change your life?
It changed my life in a lot of ways. The funny part about it, I didn't have anyone at the game because I didn't have the money to fly mum and dad to the game, and I rang the club because back then you got paid half yearly and at the end of the year. I rang the club to say, could you give me an advance on my money so I could pay for mum and dad to come? They wouldn't give me any. So I didn't have anyone at the game, which was, now you'd have 30 people there probably.
Well, everyone from Charleville.
Yeah, be there. Like, it'd be crazy. But so that was probably, you look back and go, that's the disappointing thing that mum and dad, my sisters and mates didn't get to come and watch. But yeah, it changed my life. I was also a little embarrassed later on when I retired that I'd only played one game, and I'd go to these functions and there's all these legends, and I'm here in one game. So it's sort of, until someone sort of pointed out that there's plenty of people who'd give their left leg to play one, and I went, yeah, you're right, because it's not so much playing the one, but it's the journey to get to that one. Like, there's so much, as I've told in the story, there's so much that I had to do just to get to that one game, and it meant moving towns, moving a couple of times, changing clubs, luck, so much. Had to work hard at all those pre-seasons you got to do to get a bit of luck, but then some people don't get that chance to play for Queensland, and I was lucky enough I got that one chance, and I'm so proud. I'm so proud that my kids know that I've got to play for Queensland. My daughter took the jersey to school this year for show and tell, and which is pretty cool, and I've still got all my Origin gear stored away from that game. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
What about the new joggers you had to buy? Are they still around?
Well, the worst part about that, when I got into camp, I got new joggers.
You wasted your money.
I wasted $80, which I didn't have.
I think it's great when you look back at those little things. Everyone thinks, and particularly in the modern era, that all professional athletes, and you were semi-professional really because you're still working, have everything given to them on a platter. And I think sometimes it makes it mean more. Is that a fair thing?
Yeah, 100%. Like, it was never about the money. In fact, I found the invoice, my pay invoice was $1,500 I got. Ross took out 2 tickets. I got charged 2 tickets. I didn't take anyone.
And no one went.
I've been rorted. Can I have that money back? I think I made $750 after tax. But
you'd pay $750.
I'd pay $750 plus to play, and after you play that one game, you just want to play again. And probably a regret. I guess when I signed Super League, I could have signed, and I could have been a big chance of playing in Fatty's side, which, as someone who I idolise as well, that would have been pretty cool. But I've got the one, and I'm glad. And as Sats has said, Arthur Beetson only played one.
Yeah, I suppose it would have been even worse if you hadn't played that one and you signed with Super League and you're thinking, oh, maybe I could have got.
Yeah.
At least you have that. But it was the start of your career really too. I mean, it was only the second year of your first grade career. You ended up at the Cowboys, captained the Cowboys. You were there for 2 years. Is it fair to say that not so much the highlight, Origin obviously the highlight, but the most successful part of your career was when you moved to England to play in the Super League and your time with Castleford? Can you explain what that was like?
Yeah, well, I didn't want to go. Tim Sheens had come to the Cowboys and I wasn't part of his plan. So then all of a sudden I get a phone call from the late Darryl Vandervelde, who used to coach at Cass, but he said, oh, look, Castleford are looking for a player. Would you be keen? And looked like I was going to go to the Bulldogs and the Warriors. Anyway, it didn't work out. So I said, I'll go for a year. And we've gone over there and we lost the first 11 games straight. I was getting absolutely hammered by the fans, and I'm going, what am I doing? But then Stuart Raper came over and as a coach and turned it around, and I ended up playing some of the best footy, and got to know the fans, and my twin boys, Jai and Trey, were born that year as well, which was amazing. And then another daughter, Holly, was born over there as well. So I got 3 kids who were born over in the UK. But each year we improved. In '99, we had a great year as a team, and I was lucky enough. One game off the Challenge Cup final, one game off the grand final. We got pipped both, and then I won the Man of Steel, which is like the Daily M of here, and I went to that function just happy to be nominated. So I'm throwing down the beers, and then they call my name out that I won it, and I couldn't believe it. And as I said, the first person I thanked was Tim Sheens for sacking me from the Cowboys, because I wouldn't have came to England. And
you make the dream team as well.
Made the dream team, which was pretty cool, because Andy Farrell had sort of made it most years I was playing lock then, and I was a much better footballer. I learned a lot more about footy over there, and you think I'd love to have had a chance to play for Queensland again. A bit like Alfie, I'd have loved to got called back because I was a better player, and it was an amazing experience. And the supporters over there are just amazing. Sing songs about you. They just live and breathe. And Castleford's a rugby league town and live and breathe. And
you've been put into their Hall of Fame.
Yeah, which is amazing. I got to captain that club for a number of years, which was a pretty awesome feeling. And even now, I've got such a good rapport with those supporters, and to be named into that, and it's just such good memories for me and the kids.
And maybe the biggest honour of all, and I can guarantee you that there is not going to be one FOG, male or female, that sits in the chair that you're sitting in, that can tell me or our viewers or listeners that they have had a bus named after them in Yorkshire. Tell us about having a bus named after you.
Well, they tell me it's a great ride for starters, so that it's. But the supporters were asked by the bus company in not just in West Yorkshire, to pick their player that they think a bus should be named after, and I got that honour, and so that was pretty cool. And you walk on the bus, and it's got your photo and a inscription about what you've done, and so that was pretty cool. I couldn't go over there to obviously see it, but I don't know if it's still going now. Probably it's a bit old now, I think, but like myself. But it was it's funny, but you go, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
Who had the biggest influence on your career?
Oh, I'm so blessed, because in all my junior footy, I never had one bad coach. So Mum and Dad were massive for me, Mum and Dad. Dad always did his training, so I always did extra training. I had a coach, my first coach was a bloke called Jockey Jones, who we ran up sandhills and fit. So I learned about being fit. I had old Bill Johnson, the boxing coach, again helped me And then when I went to my dad was coach for 3 years of me, and he was an awesome coach. And then I was captain and learned about leading, and then the coaches I had out at Chris McKenzie was my school teacher as well, coach. Another real coach was old school front rower Jeff Wade, whose nephew Cameron Wade played for St George. He was amazing as a coach and give you a whack on the head if you needed to be settled down, but he helped me grow as a player. And then the coaches that I had, Wally, Grant Bell was a massive coach for us in the 21s at Gold Coast Seagulls, because it was Jimmy Guido and Sats and Campo and that. He was the one that taught us how to play footy, and then I wanted to play for Wally, Belly. Stuart Raper was a massive influence for me in England, really, really good. And then just John Dixon when I came back from England, and Rick Stone, two good coaches. I've been blessed to have it, but if you had asked me, I think it'd be mum and dad, because they created a culture for me that I got to live and breathe.
What do you reckon that kid who was sitting at the dining room table with his dad in 1980 listening to Origin 1 would have thought if 40 odd years later he walks into FOGS building and his name's up on the wall alongside Wally Lewis, Arthur Beetson, Gene Miles, Chris Close, you name it, they're all up there. Jonathan Thurston, Cameron Smith, Alan Langer. What do you reckon that kid in Cunnamulla who's about to head to Charleville would have said if someone told him his name's up on the wall with all those blokes?
I don't know, but you've just given me the biggest goosebumps. I'd probably say, tell them you're dreaming. I probably wouldn't believe it, but I pinch myself all the time. I'm just blessed. I really am, and because as you know, in rugby league, you make friendships as well, and those friendships go into business and in everything. And rugby league's opened more doors for me than anything in my life, and even to this day. And I've made friends, I've made memories, and just good times. But playing for Queensland, if you said that to me as a young fellow, I would have said you're dreaming. But I put it out there in 1980 that as a 9-year-old, that I was going to play Origin one day, and it took me a little bit to get there, a few kilometres to travel, but I got there, and it was worth it.
Well, FOG number 81, Adrian Vowles, thanks for your time, and congratulations on a wonderful career.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching this episode of the FOGS Queenslander podcast. If there's a FOG you want to hear from, leave a comment to let us know. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos.